Good morning and welcome to the Woodlands Area Chamber of Commerce Between the Trees Business Talk, brought to you by Woodlands Online. We are thrilled to be with you on this beautiful rainy day, bringing some of that water that we desperately need in our area and appreciate. We just need to make sure we hold it all while it's here. But we're on a rainy day, but it's bright in the studio because we have with us Congressman Dan Crenshaw from our U.S. House of Representatives, Texas District 2. And so we are excited to have you here. Congressman, welcome, sir.
Hey, great to have you.
We're really glad to have you with us, and good to see you at home. I know that, being in the district is not only a long ways from home, but it always seems like a kind of a fantasy land to me, like you cross inside the loop and it turns into a whole different world.
Yeah, I mean, so we've been home for 2 weeks now, which is probably the longest stretch since like November. This is a particularly strange schedule. Not strange, I mean, it's an expected schedule.
Sure.
This year because, we won the trifecta as Republicans, and the idea was to get reconciliation done as soon as possible, which means we're in D.C. a lot more than we otherwise would have been. So, in a few days here or a week there that we might have off from D.C. session, and you got to do travel.
Sure.
I've traveled just this year. A couple of congressional delegations out, the Munich Security Conference, London, France. Then we had to go to Mexico City for because I studied the cartel issue. That was a few days. So that's just this year. And later this month, I got to go to Argentina, Chile, and Santiago, and that's going to be like the one again. I'll be in D.C. for a month,
Yeah.
and then in theory, you have a week at home, because people always ask me like, how much time do you spend in either place? And I'm like, it's a really hard question to answer. If you just look at the schedule, it would seem like you've got a decent enough time at home. It's not as bad as the military was.
Yeah.
But it's also inaccurate because, well, you still have to go fundraise some places, right?
Sure.
You can't always fundraise in the district,
Right.
especially depending on what kind of district you have.
Yeah.
You've got to go around the country. And from me on the Intelligence Committee, you really do have to travel.
Sure.
You have to go to the places that we need to understand and know about. And since I focus on the cartel issue so much, you need to go to Mexico. I need to plan another trip to Mexico because most members of Congress have never been. They like to talk about the issue a lot, like to talk about immigration and cartels. Funny how they've never actually visited the place. They'll do their 12th trip to the border, and I'm like, wow, you're a slow learner.
Yeah.
You need 12 trips to really. Now they like the photo ops, and
the food, right?
Yeah,
I mean, you can get some great tamales.
You can get some great food here, though. Mexico City does have some great food.
Yeah.
I actually highly recommend it, and you're going to learn way more about the border situation, about the cartel situation, by actually visiting the places you need to visit. So it's just a big part of the job. It's a cool part of the job. But it takes you away from your family. It just is what it is.
Absolutely. So, talking a little bit about Congress and then, talking about family and that road to getting there. So, we know that you were served in the military, and then went to Harvard and, had a lot of things eventually running for Congress. So, as you kind of walk that path into public service, what motivated you to get into politics?
Well, it happened very suddenly. So, like you said, I was in the military for 10 years. I always wanted to be a Navy SEAL. I never wanted to leave. I was blown up, injured in 2012. So I fought the system for about 4 more years, deployed 2 more times, and in a different capacity than just running a platoon into combat, but still deployed in the Middle East. Worked in Bahrain and Oman and Lebanon and then Korea. So, but eventually, just the medical bureaucracy does not allow you to have a career with my eye conditions. So. That is what it is. Left Harvard. I studied public policy, so I wasn't too far removed from the idea of politics. But there is a difference between wanting to go into policy like I wanted to do, and I didn't know what that meant exactly.
Sure.
I was looking for what that meant, what kind of job or career that would be, and so in the course of looking for that and really not finding it, I came across the fact that Ted Poe announced retirement all of a sudden in November of 2017, a bit unexpected, and all of a sudden a bunch of people were jumping into that race, and that was my district. Back then the district was more spring.
Sure.
There still has some of spring, of course, but it was all of spring, and it went down to the Heights and to Rice University. And so, that'd been my family's home for 20 plus years. I've grown up all over Houston between Katy and Spring and Sugar Land and the Heights and now Humble. I'll make it up to the Woodlands eventually, just if they raise our pay by like $1 million. And then, so I've lived all over the area, and so that was it. We just like 3 days later, just decided to go for it. So there was no planning at all, except in the sense that I was pretty good on the policy stuff. So but as a military guy, you want to be prepared for everything. And I was definitely in the mindset of, I'm still not prepared enough. Like, you really need to know this stuff. And then I started running for election. I was like, oh, okay, I definitely know it probably better than everybody else. Sure. Because I just did a master's degree in it. I'd always been interested in policy. I did my undergrad in international relations and physics, and not that physics is policy, but it keeps your mind sharp.
Sure.
So I would always recommend it. And so, I had a better feel for conservative policies than I maybe thought I did, and we went for it, and we won. We should not have won. I'm the exception, not the rule.
Sure.
You can't start 3 months out with no connections and money, and win. It's not possible. But we made it possible, and here we are.
Absolutely. And, we end up in those places where we should be. I think, that passion for policy is, was a differentiator, right? And, really understanding the issues and digging in there. It's not till I guess you get into office that the politics, which is kind of the people and the finagling and all of that, comes into play. So get into, unlikely candidate, unlikely race, win, get in there, with serving for a few years. And then, the magic happens not too long ago where we get to bring back the softer side, and you have a daughter.
Yeah. Yeah, she's a miracle. She's 19 months now, and, just my favorite little best friend. So my little minion, little daddy's girl.
Yeah.
So her name is Susie. She's named after my mom. I lost my mom to cancer when I was 10. And so always wanted to have a daughter named her first name is actually Susan Arabella. Wanted it as princessy as possible, and we're bringing back the name Susie. It's not as common these days as although there was some celebrity that just named their kid that, and we were like, oh. Now everyone's gonna, but we were still the first.
That's right.
And that's gonna be important to know.
That's
but
right.
it's gonna get brought back because it is a cute girl's name. It's so cute, and she's really fun and great, and just full of life, and wants to stay up, just doing everything, running around till about midnight every night. It isn't so bad because we're night owls ourselves, and she does sleep in. Like, she's not one of these kids that's up at 5 a.m. like making you play with her. Because if she was, oh my God, I don't know what I would do. I'd get really no sleep because I can't fall asleep. I'm not Jocko, right? Everybody's on their own circadian rhythm, and like fellow SEAL, is Jocko, if you're familiar with it. He's famous for like 4:30 a.m. I'm up. I'm like, okay, well, I went to bed like 2 hours before that. Like that is not a sensible rhythm for me.
Right,
you got to do what works for you and still perform. And I think that's ultimately his message. It's
Absolutely.
like, you just got to do what works. And that's what works for him. Get up and before the world is up, and look, if you can function at that hour, you'd be more productive. I get it, but yeah, it's just wonderful having her. Like, it's just the best.
For sure.
But it completely changes our life, and it's in Congress. Like, when we're trying to travel, we're juggling right now. I got to go to Austin on Friday, then I'm back in DC Saturday, for the week. Then New York. So it's just like, and I got to go to Michigan because my grandma's funeral is in Michigan next weekend, and so it's one thing for me to travel to all these places. That's not that hard, but I need to be able to see her. You know, and you think about how this was in the military with guys who had kids, and I didn't have kids in the military, but if I had, I would have viewed the job a lot differently.
Absolutely.
I would have viewed it as service. I never viewed my military service as service. Because and most SEALs would tell you that, because we got to hang out with our best friends, go camping in dangerous areas, and shoot bad guys. Like, which part of that is service? It is awesome.
Right.
It is the coolest. It is the coolest stuff ever.
Right.
We never viewed it as service.
Right.
So, but if I'd had kids, if I'd had Susie at that time, and I had to leave for 6 months in her formative years, I would have quit.
Yeah.
There's no way I'd leave that little girl I can't leave her for a week without like kind of losing my mind.
Yeah.
So hats off to these service members that do it with these little kids. It's really hard on them.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I talked to my friends about it, because I have a lot of friends still active duty and just have missed so much, and it's really hard.
Yeah. Well, we certainly appreciate the work that they are all doing to keep us safe, and definitely understand what you're feeling. We were talking a little bit before, and I have a daughter who's a super huge daddy's girl.
That's awesome. Yeah, you said she called you for 3 hours. They're like, one, that's amazing at age 20. So that's like a blessing.
Absolutely.
Of course.
Absolutely.
That's great.
But you know, that distance, you know, 'cause she's gone away to school, but it's I can only imagine when, you know, they're very young.
That's amazing though. She just wants to chat with you for hours.
That's what I tell you. You're on the right path, and you know, one of these days you'll start getting those phone calls, and you'll be like, man, I don't have the same experience as other parents. And, you know, they say, well, I never hear from my kid.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that they did anything wrong. It's just, you know,
it's hard. You're either connect or you don't. I don't know. It's not
for sure.
We're all bad parents in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah. It is one of those things where you can read all the books that you want. You can try to do all of the methods, and then there comes a time where you just have to figure it out. Sometimes you do it right, sometimes you don't. You know, you fail fast and get up and keep going.
Yeah. No, I'm just waiting for age 13 to come along and just buckle down.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk a little bit about Congress, and you know, you've seen kind of some transition in committee assignments, and you know, after you were first elected, you were on some of those committees like Budget and Homeland Security, and now you sit on some pretty highly sought after committees, getting those appointments with House Intelligence and then Energy and Commerce. How these current roles differ from kind of your earlier committee work?
Yeah, look, vastly, but for a lot of reasons. It's not like the Budget Committee right now is pretty busy, because Budget Committee plays a big role in reconciliation. So Jody Arrington is a fellow Texan, chairman of Budget. That's not nothing. Now, it used to be nothing when I was on it because we were in the minority. And when you're in the minority, the reality is that all the committees are nothing. So I showed up, and Trump was president, and we had the Senate. Yeah, we had the Senate, but it didn't matter. We were the minority in the House by a long shot. You know, we had just been destroyed in the midterm elections. So we had no say. So my only job as a freshman, and as a rather famous freshman, right? There's another interesting thing about election 2018, which was the birth of social media congressmanship, or whatever you want to call it. And you know, you had the squad, you had AOC versus me, like, and that was the game, and it was a fun. Those were the good old days. I'll be honest, those were fun. Me and AOC now have an office literally next door to each other.
Is that right?
It was just that's not by design; it just happens because of the way we do office picking and moving throughout the years. We don't fight anymore. It's like if we ever did fight, we never fought as much as people thought we did.
Sure.
Like, you know, it was very much an occasional thing, but in any case, like, that was an interesting time, you know, and it was the Democrats were after Trump on everything, and so my job was just to message and communicate. So that's what we did. flash forward a little bit. Darker times in the Republican Party. We regain the House. I'm not going to forget what years. This is all blurring together. But obviously, we lose the presidency in 2020, and Republicans are in a darker place in the sense, trying to either at each other's throats or, this is when a lot of my annoying problems start, right? Because look, whatever the reason is, there's a natural tendency in conservative culture to kind of tear down your own. I find it odd that you might tear me down. I'm one of the few who can go on shows like Bill Maher and The View and any MSNBC show and just take it to the left. So that the fact that I have such detractors on the right is interesting to me, and something we'll be dealing with in this primary coming up. So my point is then you get in the majority. I'm on Energy and Commerce by this point, and eventually Intel Committee. This is my second term on Intel Committee, so I was appointed to Intel in 2022. Yeah. Sorry, it's hard to keep these numbers straight. But in the majority, so you really have some governing responsibilities.
Sure.
You have to actually pass the budget, and you have to vote for it. I mean, you don't have to vote for it, but you have to vote for it. I mean, it always sucks, and there's a lot of members who don't view their vote as anything but a virtue signal, and I don't view it that way. There's two ways to view your vote: either as a message, or as pretending like you're the dictator, and your vote actually matters. You don't have to view it that way because you can know that it's going to pass, and there's so many members who are like, yeah, of course I want this to pass, whether it's the budget or whether it's the NDAA, the military authorization bill. Because you can always find something you don't like.
Sure.
Always.
Sure.
And if you can't find something you don't like in that long piece of legislation, you can find things you wish were in there that aren't in there, and not vote for it that way. And I've done that. But I do it with purpose. Like, for instance, I had a big fit about our big border bill. I said, what's not in this border bill? Anything to do with cartels. How can we have a border bill with nothing to do with cartels?
Right.
I fought leadership. And they said, fine, we'll give you a task force so you can study cartels. I said, fine. And that's what we've been doing for the last 2 years. And actually now we're at a point where it's time to start creating some outcomes with that. So I'm excited about doing that. But in the majority, you actually have to govern. And a lot of members don't want to govern. A lot of members want to just do the social media messaging and get a little bit famous from it. And they look to me as like, well, you're one of those guys. I'm like, no. Don't put me in that category.
Sure.
I've always used the entertainment value of social media in order to further what I think are responsible policy issues. And, I'm not in the same category as AOC. But even her, she's kind of grown out of that, if you haven't noticed. She's on ENC now. She's still not making good arguments, don't get me wrong. But, she's at least, people kind of grow up and they at least try to. Again, she's still wrong on everything. We still disagree on everything,
sure.
but it's a little bit different now than just trying to get attention all the time. And so, that's the biggest difference. Real committee work, being in the majority, where you actually have a duty to pass things, and that's more fulfilling.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's harder. It causes your own side to come against you as opposed to the Democrats. It's fun when Democrats are mad at me. I'm like, that's the natural order of things. But when your own side is mad at you, why? Because you voted for a budget, and then it's frustrating too because we had to do that when President Biden was in power, but then President Trump's in, and now it's all of a sudden okay to vote for a CR because he says so. Now, don't get me wrong, I agree with the president, but I don't like that people were slandering us just a few months ago for doing the exact same thing,
right?
Knowing full well that we had to. You have to keep the government open. If you don't, there's a lot of follow-on effects that are very bad, and you don't win anything.
Right.
If you're going to have a government shutdown like Showdown, and we've done that. We did that really well with the debt ceiling. And you know what we got? We because we did it well under McCarthy's leadership. We had demands that were very clear months in advance about permitting reform. About cutting here and there, and the Democrats had nothing to come back with, and so we won that battle.
Sure.
And that was, we had won that battle with a 5-seat majority, well, the Democrats had the Senate and the presidency. If you plan it out well, you can play a game of political chicken on these big issues. But oftentimes that doesn't happen, and then people are just mad at you either way.
Yeah.
So that's the big difference. A lot of work, but it's good work.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think those two committees really help you to kind of hone in on some key issues.
Oh yeah, I didn't even get to the issues
but for your district, right?
Yeah.
And the Houston area really benefits from having you on something like energy and commerce, right?
Yeah, it's very necessary because I specifically, when you get to Congress, you got to do majors. It's really like going to college, right? You start out in freshman orientation. You're literally called a freshman. You play some game of a lottery system to get an office, or which some people use as their dorm room. And so it's just like the way that it's like college is hilarious. And then you got to pick majors, and you pick majors basically by picking your committees. And I view myself as having a variety of majors, the kind of triple, quadruple major in a few things. So one is energy environment, kind of a mix of the two, but they're obviously the same in many ways. When it comes to policy, because we oversee the EPA.
Yep.
So there's an energy subcommittee which oversees like DOE, and then there's an environment subcommittee that I'm on that oversees EPA, and I view that as a little bit more important when helping our energy sector, because EPA is your most dangerous enemy when it comes to the energy sector and the petrochemical sector, which is also huge. There's a lot of headquarters of those kind of companies, like Huntsman, for example, in the Woodlands, but also the rest of my district going down to Channelview. So very important. Lee Zeldin's doing a good job, by the way. The Trump administration's doing a good job on the EPA front. As far as wins go, and other places, it's more mixed. But like EPA is doing great. Border, awesome. They're doing a great job. Okay, so and then healthcare. So my other subcommittee on energy and commerce is healthcare. So we oversee, now healthcare is split between 3 different committees. So that's frustrating. And you can make a much better argument that we should have one committee in Congress that deals with healthcare, as opposed to splitting it in 3 different jurisdictions. Because if you want to deal with like employment plans, ERISA plans, well, now you're looking at workforce and labor, or workforce and education committee. If you want to look at tax incentives or say HSAs, you've got to be on Ways and Means. They have their own health subcommittee. Yep. We oversee HHS, so Medicare, Medicaid. So we have a huge role in reconciliation, because we're instructed to save almost $1 trillion over 10 years in reconciliation. Yeah. That's gonna be reforms to Medicaid and some other things. So that's gonna be a tough one. Not so much for me, but it's going to be tough for some members who come from certain states that they'll get a lot of flack for that. And on Intel, geez, we see everything. I mean, we oversee the entire intelligence community. I'm the subcommittee chairman now of Defense Intel, which is 2/3 of our Intel budget. So I'm just deep diving into that. Even though I come from the Defense Intel world, like I have the same exact training as a case officer from the CIA. That's what I did in the military post-injury. And I've been to a lot of advanced courses given by the CIA. So I know that stuff pretty well, but oddly, I probably know more about the CIA than I do about my own defense intel enterprise, because that involves agencies like the NGA or NRO, which that deals with GEOINT. I'm sorry, this is a lot of detail. GEOINT, NRO is the National Reconnaissance Office. They have all the satellites, like space. I'm learning all about that. I mean, there's a huge enterprise there to get your arms around and write a budget for. And the Intel Committee is cool because it's very bipartisan. There's no cameras in there, so we just work. And you just learn and you work, and you can be very effective in there. Again, it's the only committee that you can travel. The reason I'm going to South America is with this committee. I don't need to make a whole CODEL out of it with because CODELs have to be a certain amount of people. They have to be bipartisan. State Department has to approve. We don't have to do any of that. We just get to go. It's a very cool committee, and it's really important for our nation's security.
For sure. And it sounds like, I mean, with the committee assignments that you have and the things that you're working on, you have that unique kind of perspective, but then opportunity that I would say at times is a challenge. Is you're overseeing something like EPA, where it's not that you're saying we don't need environmental regulations, which is kind of the rap that you get, but really framing it more from we need guardrails, not speed bumps, guys.
Yeah.
You know, in our
We
district.
need rational I call it rational environmentalism.
Absolutely.
Like, I'm a rational environmentalist. I believe that, of course, there's climate change, and of course there's some effect from humans, and I've said this before. Like, there's some effect from humans on the environment, whether that's carbon emissions and that cause climate change or global warming, or whether it's just pollution. But our goal, you cannot destroy the current generation in the unsure hope that you might save a future generation.
Sure.
That is the definition of insanity. And also, the math doesn't work the way they think it does. And we've been winning this argument for years now. It's funny because, you know, in Europe, conservatives are like really trying to hit this hard still.
Sure.
And back here, I'm like, we kind of won this battle. I think like we've made a lot of great progress on persuading people. Like, look, I'll accept every single piece of science that the UN puts out as the consensus. But do you know what it says? Nothing about a crisis.
Right.
There's no red alarms. That's all the headlines. The science actually is pretty well done, and it's pretty nuanced. And you know what it doesn't say? Destroy your life.
Yeah.
We still need plastics. You still need oil and gas. And in
Sure.
fact, you need more of it. You need to be promoting more export of natural gas, because that's what displaces foreign coal, which is
Sure.
50% of our global emissions is foreign coal-burning power plants.
Sure.
Like, I can make this argument all day, and the math just doesn't work for the radical environmentalists. And you're exactly right. The problem with the left is they basically assume the following with any kind of regulatory issue: if one regulation is good, then 10 more must be better.
Yeah.
That's just how they think. And I'm like, no, no. Sometimes businesses need certainty, first of all. And it is just simply not true from an analytical perspective that 10 more must be better just because one is good.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about, I think one of the most fascinating things that you're working on is with the cartels. Tell us a little bit about that work.
So much to tell, and I'm realizing I've talked too much, and we've got 3 minutes left. So I was just appointed, I guess, head of a new cartel task force. This one with a little bit more teeth in it because it's directly under the Intelligence Committee.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of where it needs to live, because a lot of what I deal with on cartel issues is classified.
Oh, yeah.
And so the immediate goal is to, and we're working hard to get some answers from the administration, and we've been successful in some ways, in other ways not. It's very frustrating, actually. Just getting numbers. Hey, because I already know what to do. I've been studying. I'm probably the only person in government that has a strategy. I'm not bragging here. It's just I'm the only one who's bothered to research it and to go to every single agency and figure out what we're doing. That was step number one. What are we doing? And it turns out a lot of different agencies, from law enforcement, the DEA, to FBI, to the DOJ, to the CIA, to the DOD was doing nothing. But now they're like, really want to do something. There's reasons for that. Trump being one of them, but also Mexico being more open to it. So I know what everybody's doing, but nobody's doing it together. Sure. To the extent that they are, it happens in Mexico City. The embassy there is a really interesting visit, so I encourage other members to actually bother to visit. It's a 2-hour flight from Houston. It's not that hard. And it is a very operational embassy. We've got a new ambassador coming in, Ron Johnson, who's going to be fantastic. I can't wait. He's just got a background that would he's a Green Beret, CIA, like former ambassador to El Salvador. I'm very excited about working with him, but it's taken some time for him to get confirmed. I think he is now. So I'll be back to visit with him. Anyway, what do? We need to, right now in reconciliation, we can't change policy, but we can plus up current policies and current authorizations, and that needs to be in the Department of Defense, because we really need to create, let me just simplify all this for you. You have a Ukraine Security Assistance Initiative, right? Okay. Well, a lot of people's argument against that, and now I don't agree with it, but it was because I'm a supporter of it. But the argument was a good one and a fair one, which is, why do we care about their border more than ours? That was a fair argument, especially when Biden was president, letting in everybody, but trying to defend their border. So I'm calling this the North America First Security Assistance Initiative, because actually the framework with how we deliver that money and resources is a good one, because it's multi-agency. And what you need to do is bolster Mexican capabilities, the ones that we trust and have vetted, and there are some. And you need to build out capabilities within their military. You need to have money to take 2,000 Mexican Special Forces guys, that's about how many there are, And we don't need to send our guys down there to train them for a couple of reasons. The Mexicans don't like that politically. Let's bring them here. Let's bring them here. Let's put them through our training. Let's create a pipeline for the Tier 1 groups, because they have some amazing Tier 1 groups. They're the ones going out every single night hitting cartel bosses and hitting cartel chemists. These guys are really trying to solve the problem right now. Very different from the last Mexican administration. Just remember, Mexico just went through a transition in October. So President Sheinbaum is now president. Very, very different than AMLO. AMLO would not cooperate with us.
Sure.
So I wouldn't waste my time trying to spend money on this. Now, Trump is president. It's a priority for Trump. Again, I'm frustrated with it, but there's not enough people working this at the White House. There's nobody working this at the White House. They're not staffed up yet, so I'm trying to help them. But first of all, what they need is there are different agencies that are doing the work already. They need to be boosted in funding. That's step one. We can do that in reconciliation. Step two will be other changes to law and authorizations that I think allow us to go after the problem a little bit better.
Excellent.
So I mean, we talk about that for an hour.
Yeah, absolutely. But bringing it a little bit closer to home, there are some projects that you have worked hard to help bring to the area in terms of bridges that we need.
Yeah.
And bridges, roads, infrastructure.
I know I have a list somewhere if we want to go through it, but it's been great. It's one of my proudest.
Looking like Bear Branch Dam is going to get $5 million in rehab.
I was just told it probably needs more.
Yeah,
so I guess that'll be at our next.
Well, there's never enough, right?
There's never enough, and look, that's fine. It's just like. So let's talk earmarks, right? Like we're talking about our earmarks, and some conservatives are like, you can't earmarks. Oh, typical Rhino Dan wants to have earmarks. Well, I'm sorry for wanting to actually bring your tax dollars back to your district in a way that saves your life.
Yeah.
And those are the kind of projects I will only do flood mitigation projects. Yeah. I ran just after Harvey. Yeah. Now, and especially my old district. Keep in mind, my first district was Lake Houston area. And like Addicts Reservoir area, I mean, just devastation throughout that entire area. 7 feet of water in people's homes, and I came home without any intention of going into politics. I swear, and was volunteering with Team Rubicon, and just saw the devastation firsthand all day, every day while we were volunteering. Just mucking out people's houses, bringing people's houses down to studs so that contractors could come in. I've learned, after doing a lot of home remodeling myself, that most of your costs are demo. Yeah. And so to have like groups like Team Rubicon who come in and just demo is such a massive cost saving to people. And so I was proud to do that. But it's been a priority ever since, and we've probably gotten $75 million total in my entire time in office, in flood mitigation projects back to the district. Just a Bear Dam is going to be one of the important ones.
For sure, and pushing for things like the additional drainage and opportunity in like the Tamina area.
Yeah,
which is important.
That one's a big one, forgotten I think for years.
Absolutely, and it's interesting that you just shared, and I'll say here now, I really appreciate the way that you framed it and just your why for going back. Pushing for projects to bring tax dollars home that can ultimately save lives, that can make lives better. Mm-hmm. Appreciate that, because it's not about you, right? You're really serving the people in doing that. And
well, earmarks just get such a bad political rap.
Sure.
I mean, but first of all, let's just get some facts straight. If you you get rid of earmarks, which we did for 10 years, mm-hmm. So Congressman had no ability to even you're passing the decision-making authority to a bureaucracy. And they don't give a crap about you. And also, you're not saving any money, because the top line budget is still the top line budget.
Right.
It's just a matter of who gets to spend it. And, our founders argued about this, actually. And so we've been arguing about this since the founding of our country. But they were very much of the opinion, yes, there has to be some ability for a representative to choose some kind of projects for their own district. What else are you doing otherwise?
Yeah.
Look, if we didn't have a federal income tax, then no. Then you'd have enough money to tax yourselves here, so you could do it yourself. But we do have a federal income tax, and so we need to be bringing some of that money in a good, responsible way. Now, earmarks in the past, I don't think were well guarded.
Sure.
Now they are. The rules surrounding what we call community project funding, not earmarks, but they are earmarks. It's very different. It's just not like what it used to be.
Absolutely.
And look, I think in some districts, some members might choose some frivolous things that maybe they don't need. But everything I do, I make sure it's infrastructure. That takes a lot of input and help from local authorities.
Absolutely.
Like in Harris County, for instance, we work with the Harris County Flood Control District constantly on like which projects are shovel ready, and because those will get approved.
Yeah.
And the same in Montgomery County. Everyone's been very helpful in figuring out, hey, this is what we really need. This is a good project. It'll get approved again by our appropriations committee because it makes sense. And it's worthwhile. So we have a great staff that does a great job just identifying those things.
Definitely. And in our last couple of minutes, there are some pretty notable summits that you do here in the Woodlands, like the SEAL Youth Leadership Summit.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my first opportunities after I got here, the Healthcare Innovation Summit. Tell us why you started these, and kind of the impact or the benefits that you hope to get for students and families and people of
but the
district.
healthcare summit, I don't know. I just got to jump again when you choose majors. I don't even know how I ended up with healthcare. It just seemed like a place that Republicans needed help on, as far as just messaging and kind of some new, fresh thought processes and ideas. Because I try to tell people you got to view healthcare through as a vision for what we want in 30 years, as opposed to like getting bogged down in the details of Obamacare and all this. You need to know those things, but you also need to have a vision moving forward. And so I was just drawn to it maybe for that reason, because I'm trying to work on things that I think we're weak on. And in the time, it was like climate change debates and healthcare. And so I ended up in those places. Yeah. But the healthcare summit is just, it is a cool summit. We've been doing it literally every year since I started. And I basically run it, it's a couple hours. I give a major award to somebody who's done something incredible for healthcare innovation. I call it the Susan Carroll Crenshaw Award after my mom, because my mom, there's some history there. There's personal history. My mom was like patient number one for Taxotere, now a commonly used cancer drug. Back in the early 90s, they weren't really sure how to use it, so she was a part of that first clinical trial.
Sure. So
we show a little like ABC News interview of her that they did back then, and she didn't make it. They didn't know how to use it. They weren't sure how to use it correctly back then. I mean, that's why they were in a trial. But now it's saved a lot of lives. So we give an award for that. I mean, one of the cooler awards I've given was to our doctor who helped us have Susie. Nice. He's a kind of a forward-leaning endometriosis doctor. So, and then we do like 4 or 5, maybe 6 at times presentations. And so somebody who's built a really cool new biomedical device, or like something that zaps tumors with a cap on your head, or psychedelics, or just something interesting. And I'll do like a really structured kind of 15-minute interview with them.
Sure.
Going through exactly what it is, and almost like a TED Talk.
Yeah.
And then we move from person to person. And ideally, we'd love to see more investors come into these, because we're talking about new startups that are trying to make it, that are trying to get FDA approval. That'd be my ultimate goal, is one day to really create that ecosystem of the smart people and the rich people that help make the smart innovators become something else and help commercialize their products. But it's a cool thing. And then the SEAL Summit, we came up with that last year, because we used to do youth summits on our campaign. They were just big and expensive and pretty much unsustainable, to be honest. And we don't have the kind of money to do that anymore. So we changed it, and I think in a better format, to our official side, because now we connect directly with schools. We'll do it again at the John Cooper School, because they have a big auditorium that can fit 500 kids. We'll have a day of amazing speakers speaking on leadership, on civics, on all sorts of things. It'll be in late September, and I really encourage everyone to sign up. We'll keep putting out word on how to sign up and when. But it really is worthwhile. We encourage teachers and schools to give extra credit to students who would go to that. Sure. It's called the SEAL Summit, because somebody help me out here.
Summit for Emerging American Leaders.
Summit for Emerging American Leaders.
There you go.
See, SEAL stands for either that, Summit for Emerging American Leaders, or the Sea, Air, and Land, which is actually what the Navy SEALs stand for, if people are wondering.
Absolutely. Well, as we close here, big picture, what do you hope to bring to the people of Texas 2nd District, whether it's through economic opportunity, safety, community resources. What's your big picture and your role?
Yeah, I
in
mean,
helping that?
for this year, let's focus on, we got to get reconciliation done. I'm going to be really hard pressed to get our cartel bill into reconciliation. You need to fund this fight now. You can't wait till appropriation season to do it. It needs to be funded now because it's an emergency. And you've got basically a terrorist insurgency in Mexico that is terrorizing Mexico, of course, our biggest trading partner. Not a place you want to fall apart. It's
For sure.
right on the. It's on our. It should be our best friend. And also, it just so happens these cartels are killing tens of thousands of Americans with fentanyl. So that's a big one. The other reason reconciliation is important is because you need to know what your tax rates are going to be. That's why we're trying to move so fast. It's to give the American people and businesses certainty on. A lot of people are just waiting to invest. Just ask the business community. We're not sure if we should invest. We're not sure if we're going to be able to deduct that investment right away. I don't know what my taxes are going to be, so that depends on who I hire. Like, you need to get this stuff done. The tariff war, I can't control that, but I know businesses are struggling with that, and so we try to promote those. We tell those stories to the White House as well, so that they understand it. I do think Trump has a broader strategy there, but so it's not going to last forever. But they still need to hear what people are going through.
For sure.
Those are the big ones, and of course we were not able to get our community funding projects in for this last appropriations bill because the president wanted it to be a clean CR, so we'll have to re-up those. And maybe that's an opportunity too to kind of get tweak the numbers a little bit. Again, I've heard like we might need more money for the Bear Dam, for instance. So it'll be a good opportunity to do that. But in the short term, I'm focusing on what I can accomplish, not just messaging on what It's easy to message on what you think should be accomplished. We've been also the leaders on the transgender issue when it comes to stopping the practice of transitioning minors to a different gender. Texas already makes that illegal, but we're trying to do it at the federal level. We might be able to do that in reconciliation as well, on a smaller extent, but we still need to pass bigger bills that will make that permanent. So, just to name a few.
Excellent. Well, amidst all of the other things that you're doing in Congress, you also have a podcast called Hold These Truths. So, tell everybody how they can get involved with your work, how they can kind of stay informed, and any other big things that you want to share with them.
Yeah, thanks. I love it when people listen to the podcast. You can find any policy issue at this point, because we've done 300, I don't know, for almost 400 episodes by this point, since 2020. You can find every single policy issue imaginable. I always interview somebody who's an expert on something. Sometimes it has nothing to do with policy. I've had some really interesting, just scientific ones, or we had a Catholic priest talk about exorcisms once. That's an interesting one. It's one of my favorite things to do. I hope you'll listen to it. It's called Hold These Truths. You can find it on Spotify, Apple, anywhere you watch podcasts. It's on YouTube as well. If you just type in Dan Crenshaw podcast, Dan Crenshaw Hold These Truths, you'll find it, and you'll be able to find a wide array of policy issues that actually appeal to you. We've done probably something on everything, and they're very candid, real conversations, not just sound bites. It's real news because you have real experts talking about the details, and we make it quick, make it an hour. It's not just a bunch of jabbering like I think too many podcasts are these days. I don't know how people listen to 3-hour, 4-hour podcasts. Right. I don't know how that's possible. And 75% of the conversation is just they're just shooting the breeze. Like I like it, and I think you like this too, because you want to get to the substance quickly. Absolutely. Let's ask questions and go, and that's how it is. So I appreciate it.
Excellent, for sure. So we know that we'll have coming up soon the Youth Summit as well as the Healthcare Innovation Summit. We again appreciate you coming on today. We are glad to have you at home and get to spend some time with you. And so thanks again for stopping by. Thank you all for watching today. Thank you for all of you do in the community for work. Special thanks today for administrative professionals. It is Administrative Professionals Day, and we know that you all are the heartbeat of all of the operations that go on across this country, as well as our volunteers that we celebrate this month. And we as a chamber will be celebrating them here in just a few minutes. But until next time, We again thank you, Congressman, for joining us, and we will see each one of you all next week between the trees. Have a great day.
Thanks for having me.